You know exactly what you need to do, but you don't do it. Not for lack of knowledge, not for lack of time. You simply don't act. And that's destroying you from the inside, isn't it? In feudal Japan, there was something the samurai feared more than death itself. It wasn't the enemy's blade. It wasn't defeat in battle. It was something much more silent, much more treacherous. They called it Yudan, negligence, the slumbering of vigilance. You know what's frightening? Udan didn't attack the weak. He didn't attack the unprepared. He attacked precisely those who had already achieved something, those who lowered their guard, those who thought, I've already arrived. And there's more. The samurai developed a specific philosophy to combat this, a principle so powerful that it literally means cutting through doubt. Ketsudan. The ability to act without hesitation, to transform knowledge into action. Today you'll learn the story of Takeshi, a young man who achieved his greatest dream and almost lost everything because of a single mistake. A mistake you might make every day without realizing it. Chapter 1. The Ascension. Takeshi was 12 years old when he saw a samurai for the first time. It wasn't in an epic battle. It was on an ordinary morning when a warrior stopped to drink water at the village well. The man moved in a special way. Every gesture had a purpose. Every movement contained decades of discipline. At that moment, Takeshi decided, I will become a samurai. But deciding is easy. Everyone decides. The difference lay in what came after. Takeshi would wake up before sunrise. He would train until his hands bled. He would study strategy until his eyes burned. While other boys played, he practiced kata. While others rested, he meditated on the teachings of Sun Tzu and Miyamoto Musashi. 3 years later, something extraordinary happened. At 15, Takeshi was accepted into Master Yamada's sword school, one of the most respected in the entire province. You need to understand, in each generation, only 5 students were accepted. Takeshi was one of them. The training was brutal. Waking up at 4 in the morning, meditation in the snow, combat until his body collapsed. But Takeshi endured because he was focused, he was hungry. He had a bigger dream. It wasn't just to be a samurai, it was to command armies. It was to become a respected strategist and advisor to daimyos. At 18, Takeshi graduated. The ceremony was simple but powerful. Master Yamada handed him the 2 swords, katana and wakizashi, the symbols of the samurai. You have earned the right to wield these blades, said the master, but remember, the real battle begins now. The battle against yourself. Takeshi heard, but he didn't listen. Do you know the difference? Chapter 2. It Remains. In the first few months, Takeshi maintained his discipline. He woke up early, he trained, he studied. But something began to change. Something subtle, something dangerous. He had a salary now. He had respect. He had the title. People called him Samurai Takeshi. He had made it, right? I'll train tomorrow, he began to say. Today I deserve to rest. One day turned into a week turned into a month. He still showed up for the mandatory group training sessions. But the extra training, the strategy study, the constant improvement, that all faded away. Takeshi fell into the world's oldest trap. He confused achievement with a rival. He thought that crossing the finish line meant the race was over. The Japanese have a name for this, Udan, written with the kanji for oil and cut. The idea is that your vigilance, your attention, slips away like oil. You lose control without realizing it. And here lies the danger of Udan. Udan doesn't shout. He whispers. It doesn't appear as obvious laziness. It appears as reasonable justifications. I've trained enough. I deserve this rest. I've proven my worth. I'm not saying you can't rest, you can and should. But resting is different from being negligent and complacent. 6 months after graduation, Takeshi received his first real mission. A group of bandits was terrorizing villages on the border. 5 samurai were assigned. Takeshi was the youngest. His role was specific, to protect the right flank during the ambush they had planned. Simple, right? Something he had practiced hundreds of times in school. The ambush began as planned. The bandits fell into the trap. But then, something happened that Takeshi didn't expect. 3 bandits separated from the group and attacked precisely the right flank. Takeshi's body reacted, but it reacted with 6 months of rust. His movements were slow. His assessment of the situation was confused. By the time he finally neutralized 2 attackers, the third had already passed him. And this third bandit went straight for Kenji, an experienced samurai who trusted that Takeshi would protect that flank. Kenji's scream echoed through the forest, and then silence. When it was all over, 5 bandits were dead, but Kenji was too. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. The return trip was the longest of Takeshi's life. No one spoke, but he felt the weight of their stares. They weren't angry stares. They were worse. They were stares of disappointment. When they arrived at the dojo, Master Yamada was waiting. He already knew. News like that traveled fast. "Takeshi, come with me." They walked in silence to the Zen garden. The master sat down. Takeshi remained standing, unable to find the peace to sit. "Tell me what happened," said the master. It wasn't an order, it was an invitation. Takeshi told everything, every detail, every mistake. When he finished, he expected shouts. He expected punishment. He expected to be expelled. What he didn't expect was what came next. "Are you familiar with the concept of Yudan?" the master asked. "No, sensei." Yudan is negligence. It's when you let your guard down. It's when you stop sharpening your blade because it's already sharp enough. Udan killed more samurai than any enemy could ever manage. The master picked up a whetstone and an old blade. "See this sword? It was once magnificent. It cut bamboo as if it were paper. But its owner stopped sharpening it, stopped cleaning it, stopped training with it. Today it's just rusty iron, useless, dangerous to whoever wields it." Takeshi felt the words like blows. "You earned the title of samurai, Takeshi, but you treated it as destiny, as if the journey were over. You committed Yudan, and Yudan has a price." Chapter 4. The Principles. Yudan, the philosophy of vigilance. "Let me explain something that the samurai of the Sengoku era understood deeply," Master Yamada continued. "Yudan is not just laziness. It's something far more dangerous." He drew a circle in the sand of the Zen garden. "Imagine this circle represents your vigilance, your attention, your discipline. When you're achieving something, this circle is perfect, you're focused. But the moment you achieve it, the circle starts to crack, small cracks, invisible cracks, until one day—" He erased the circle with a quick wave of his hand. "It disappears completely." Udan comes from the samurai period, but the word literally combines yu, oil, and dan, to cut, break. The image is powerful. Just as oil slips through your hands when you least expect it, your vigilance slips when you feel secure. "The great samurai strategists had a rule," the master said. "Victory is the moment of greatest danger." Why? Because that's when you relax, when you think you already know, when you stop training as if your life depended on it. And here's the brutal truth. Yudan doesn't attack the weak. He attacks the competent. He attacks those who have already proven their worth. Why? Because only those who have achieved something have something to lose through negligence. "Takeshi, you trained for 3 years to get in here. You trained for another 3 to graduate. But in the last 6 months, you stopped. Not completely. You were still doing the bare minimum, but the bare minimum keeps you where you are. It doesn't take you where you want to go." The master stood up and looked directly into Takeshi's eyes. "You wanted to be a strategist, to command armies. But how can you lead men if you can't lead yourself? How can you gain the trust of others if you've broken the trust you had in yourself?" After speaking these words, the master began to teach him about another philosophy, which was the antidote to Yudan. Ketsudan, the philosophy of cutting. The master continued. "But there is something that can cure Yudan," said the master, his voice gaining a new intensity. The samurai called it Ketsudan. He unsheathed his own katana. The blade gleamed even in the dim afternoon light. Ketsudan means decision, but not just any decision. The kanji ketsu means to cut or to separate. The kanji dan means judgment or conclusion. Together they mean cutting away doubt, separating thought from action. With a fluid motion, he cut through the air. The sound of the blade was like a sharp whisper. When a samurai draws his sword into battle, he cannot hesitate. There is no time for "should I?" What if I make a mistake? Maybe tomorrow. Between thought and action, there is only death. Ketsudan is about eliminating that space. The master sheathed his sword and turned to Takeshi. "You know what you need to do now, don't you?" "Yes, sensei. I need to get back to training. I need to..." "No!" The master's voice cut through the air like a katana itself. "You're doing exactly what Yudan wants. You're thinking, planning, promising. Tomorrow you'll train. Next week you'll study strategy. Next month..." He pointed to the dojo. "Ketsudan isn't tomorrow, it's now. It's not about planning to train, it's about training. The difference between a living samurai and a dead samurai isn't in how much they know. It's in the speed between knowing and doing." The master then shared something that would change Takeshi forever. During the Battle of Sekigahara, there was a young samurai named Yoshimura. He knew he needed to protect his lord. He had trained his entire life for that moment. But when the battle began, he hesitated. Just 3 seconds. He thought, "What if I fail?" In those 3 seconds, an arrow struck his lord. Yoshimura spent the rest of his short life knowing that it wasn't a lack of skill that killed his lord. It was a lack of Ketsudan. The silence that followed was dense. "Takeshi, you have a choice now, a real choice. Not between training or not training, that's easy. The real choice is between being someone who knows what to do or someone who does what they know." Chapter 5. The Renaissance. Takeshi didn't respond with words, because words would only be more thought without action. He stood up, bowed deeply to the master, and walked straight to the dojo. At that very moment, it was almost 6 in the afternoon. The group training session had ended. The dojo was empty, perfect. Takeshi picked up his training sword, and he began. Basic kata. The same movements he had practiced 1,000 times as a student. But now each movement carried weight. Each cut in the air was a cut in Udan. Each advance was a step away from negligence. 1 hour turned into 2, 2 turned into 3. When other samurai arrived for the following morning's training, Takeshi was still there, sweaty, exhausted, but with eyes that hadn't seen in months. "Didn't he sleep?" one of the samurai asked Master Yamada. "He had been sleeping for 6 months," the master replied. "Today he woke up." But Takeshi knew that 1 day of training wouldn't erase 6 months of neglect. Yudan is easy to invite, hard to kick out, so he made a decision. He went to Master Yamada and asked for something unusual. "Sensei, I want to be responsible for cleaning the dojo. Every day, before the first training session and after the last one." The master raised an eyebrow. Cleaning the dojo was a beginner's task. For a fully trained samurai, it was almost a humiliation. "Why do you want this?" "Because I need a daily reminder. I need to be here when the sun rises and when the sun sets. I need to see the others training. I need to force myself to be present. If I let my commitment depend on motivation, I'll fail again. But if I create an external obligation, something that others depend on me for, maybe I can keep Yudan away." Master Yamada smiled. Not a smile of happiness, a smile of recognition. "You understand. Ketsudan isn't about one heroic action. It's about 1,000 small actions. It's about eliminating the possibility of hesitation by removing choice. Granted, the dojo is yours to take care of." The next few months were different, not because Takeshi was excited, excitement comes and goes like the tides, but because he had built something more powerful, structure. Every day at 4:30 in the morning, he cleaned the dojo, without exception, rain or shine, sick or healthy, because Ketsudan doesn't negotiate with circumstances. While cleaning, he practiced the fundamentals: steps, stances, breathing. The boring things that separate a mediocre samurai from a lethal one. After the group training session, while the others went to rest, Takeshi stayed. Another hour, sometimes 2, studying strategy, simulating battles, analyzing his own weaknesses with the same brutality he would use to analyze those of an enemy. But there was one particular day that changed everything. 3 months after resuming his training, Takeshi was practicing when he heard a familiar voice. "His right flank is still open." It was Hideaki, one of the samurai who was on the mission. The samurai who saw Kenji die because of Takeshi's mistake. Takeshi stopped. He expected anger. He expected accusation. What he didn't expect was what came next. "Let me show you something." Hideaki picked up a training sword and demonstrated a movement, a subtle rotation that kept his flank protected even during multiple attacks. "Kenji taught me that. He was obsessed with not leaving any openings. I think he'd want you to know." Takeshi felt something break inside him. "Why are you helping me? I failed. Kenji died because I failed." Hideaki sheathed his sword and looked Takeshi in the eyes. Kenji had a saying. He used to say, "The death of one samurai teaches more than the life of 100. If you use his death as an excuse to give up, then it was pointless. But if you use it as fuel to never fail again, then perhaps it saved not only you, but everyone you will protect in the future." It was at that moment that Takeshi understood something profound about Ketsudan. It wasn't just about acting without hesitation. It was about transforming pain into purpose, transforming failure into foundation. Master Yamada used to tell his students something that echoed the teachings of Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman. You must train as if each practice were your last battle, and you must go into battle as if it were just another practice. This apparent contradiction is the essence of Ketsudan, training with total intensity, but acting without anxiety. The action becomes so natural that it ceases to be a conscious choice. It becomes a reflex. Takuan Soho, the Zen monk who advised many samurai, wrote in the 17th century, "A mind that hesitates is dead. A mind that flows is alive. Between the thought of attacking and the attack, there should not be room for a sheet of paper." And about Yudan, the Hagakure, the famous samurai code warns, "The samurai who thinks he has mastered the sword is the next to fall by the sword." 6 months later, Takeshi received another mission. The same type. Protect the flank. Ambush bandits. But this time, something was different. It wasn't his movements. Technically, he'd been capable of that for a year. What was different was the absence of doubt, the absence of hesitation. When 3 bandits attacked his flank again, his body simply reacted. There was no "can I do it?" There was no "what if I miss?" There was only movement, clean, precise, efficient. All the samurai returned alive. But Takeshi's story didn't end with him becoming a skilled samurai. Remember his dream? Strategist, commander. 2 years later, during a tense negotiation between clans, Takeshi noticed something no one else had seen, an opportunity for an alliance that could prevent a bloody war. He could have remained silent. It wasn't his time to speak. He was just a young samurai. But Ketsudan doesn't ask if it's the right time. Ketsudan acts when action is necessary. Takeshi spoke. He presented his analysis. He proposed the alliance. And to everyone's surprise, the leaders accepted. War was avoided. Hundreds of lives were saved. Master Yamada was present. After the meeting, he called Takeshi. "Do you know what you just did?" "I just saw an opportunity and acted." "Exactly. A strategist isn't someone who knows everything. It's someone who acts on what they know. Congratulations, Takeshi. You've finally become what you were always capable of being." So let me ask you a question. You're not Takeshi, you're not a samurai in feudal Japan, but you have your own flank to protect, don't you? That project you know you should start. That difficult conversation you need to have. That habit you know you need to change. That workout, that study session, that phone call. You know what to do. The issue isn't knowledge, it never was. The question is, are you committing Udan? Did you achieve something in the past and are now resting on your laurels? Are you waiting for the right moment that will never come? Because here is the truth that the samurai understood. The right time is now. It always has been. It always will be. Ketsudan isn't about grand heroic decisions. It's about bridging the gap between knowing and doing. It's about eliminating internal negotiation. It's about transforming intention into action so quickly that they become indistinguishable. Takeshi almost lost everything before learning this. Will you wait until you lose something precious? Or will you wake up now? Kenji's death taught Takeshi that tomorrow is a promise you might not keep, not because you don't want to, but because you might not be here tomorrow. So I challenge you, when this video ends, don't think about what you're going to do. Don't plan, don't promise, do one thing. One small action, in the direction of what you know you need to do. Because the difference between who you are and who you can become isn't some magical future transformation. It's in the next decision, in the next move, in the next hour. Yudan is waiting to put you to sleep again. Ketsudan is waiting to wake you up. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, choosing not to choose is already a choice, and it's usually the worst one. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel for more content about Eastern philosophies that transform knowledge into action. And remember to leave a like. If you want to learn more about Eastern philosophies and concepts, watch the video that's playing on your screen right now. In it, I delve into other Japanese techniques that can completely change your understanding of various subjects. What will be your first action after watching this video? Tell me in the comments. You know what to do. Just do it. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.